Sometimes politics is about personalities. In today's news, for instance, there was a lot of personality as politics on display, even beyond the John Ensign affair. Just looking at the positive stuff, the rollout of Jon Huntsman as a little-known but promising Republican candidate for president. That rollout started today with a big, puffy profile of Mr. Huntsman in Time magazine. Did you know that Jon Huntsman played the keyboards in a band called Wizard? Not The Wizard or The Wizards, but just Wizard? Now you do. Thank you, Time magazine. Candidate watchers are very excited also about the fact that Mitch Daniels' wife is giving a speech tonight in Indiana. That is seen as a key signifier that Mr. Daniels might actually be running for president this year, apparently based on what we know about his personal life and how his wife functions in his political decision-making. Also, the political press today parsed every moment, every aspect of an interaction that President Obama had with a soon-to-be laid-off federal employee at a town hall event yesterday, judging his perceived empathy, delving into the personal circumstances, the work circumstances of the woman who confronted him. Sometimes politics is about personalities, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes politics is about policy, very rarely. But today was one of those days when politics wasn't necessarily about personalities or policy all that much as it was about emotional catharsis. As the CEOs of the 5 biggest oil companies in the country went to D.C. to a Democratic-controlled hearing to tell the Senate and the American people that while gas is $4 a gallon, when it costs 8 hours of minimum wage work to pay for 1 tank of gasoline, 8 hours for 1 tank, when oil companies are breaking their own records for the most profit ever made by any corporation ever in the recorded history of Earth, when ExxonMobil is making $5 million of profit every single hour, the oil companies today tried to tell America that they need to keep getting their taxpayer subsidies, please. You knew it was going to be a cathartic day when ConocoPhillips, on the eve of today's hearings, set the stage by putting out a press release that said it would be un-American for ConocoPhillips to no longer get hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate welfare, despite its unbelievable profits. That was their press release the day before this hearing.
Did you really mean to question my patriotism and the patriotism of the 28 other United States senators who are co-sponsors? Do you believe that President Obama is un-American because he has proposed cutting oil subsidies? Do you believe that former President Bush, Speaker Boehner, Congressman Ryan are un-American because they have expressed cutting oil subsidies?
Senator, there was the media title of our media release, nothing was intended to be personally directed to you, any of the senators, colleagues, or anyone.
Do you think anyone who advocates cutting these subsidies is un-American? Yes or no?
Well,
yes or no, sir? That one, we deserve a yes or no answer on. It was your release that said un-American. Yes or no?
It's really not credible to say that you're going to raise gas prices simply because we are asking you to forego 1 to 2% of your profits.
Do you think that your subsidy is more important than the financial aid we give to students to go to college? Could you answer that, yes or no?
Well, that's a very difficult question for me. Two totally different questions.
But we have to weigh those two things, Mr. Mulva.
How much profit on a barrel of oil do you have to make to not be needful of these subsidies that we think you don't need, but you say your life depends on? At some point, you wouldn't need the subsidies. I think you're there already, but you don't. So at what point do you think that you don't need these subsidies?
As we've described, we don't receive subsidies, Senator. I don't think the American people want shared sacrifice. I think they want shared prosperity. And what we have to offer,
lovely
Senator,
statement. But do you understand how out of touch that is? I think you're out of touch, deeply, profoundly out of touch, and deeply and profoundly committed to sharing nothing.
Now, these 5 CEOs, they knew that this was what they were in for today. They are well paid. They know that this is part of their job to be on the receiving end of this kind of complaint when oil is causing everybody else so much financial pain, but it's causing them so much financial party. They know the drill, though, as it were. So they knew this was going to happen. So mostly they just sat there and took it today. What was interesting, though, was that one Republican senator decided today that he would make a really big show of taking the CEO's side. Republican Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah.
While the American people ask Congress to do something about high gas prices, the response of Democrats is to rail against oil executives.
Leave Exxon alone. I'm sorry, that was very petty. I take it back. I'm sorry that we did that. By way of explanation, though, this is why I am feeling petty about Senator Orrin Hatch today. I'm sorry.
The liberal mouthpieces over at MSNBC certainly had the talking points yesterday afternoon and are ready to make some political hay at the expense of our witnesses today. Now, I'm not going to wait for the MSNBC lineup to put on their hard hats and stand on an oil rig and do a promotional ad asking this tough question about the potential loss of blue-collar American jobs.
Senator Hatch, I didn't know you cared. But since you do, I would love to talk to you about this stuff. I would love to talk to you about this stuff while wearing a silly hat, if that's what you want. I would offer you a hat so we could both wear hats and talk about this stuff if that would make you more comfortable. Your office told us that you were not available to come on the show tonight, but because of you talking about me in the Senate today, I know you're watching. So I live in hope that you will want to be on this show. Here's what I would like to ask you first. You say we need to keep subsidizing these big oil companies so they'll keep investing in the United States and keep creating jobs, right? The thing is, the record shows that as they keep making more and 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 more profits for themselves, that has not translated into them making any more jobs. Quite the contrary. Here, for example, is ExxonMobil's net income from 2005 to 2008. Look at that. Every single year they made more and more and more money, and every single year they shed employees. So, Senator, how much more profit do you think these oil companies will need to make before that actually does turn into jobs like you say it will? Second question. You said today that cutting the oil companies' subsidies will hurt the industry's bottom line, and that means higher prices at the pump. Exxon just posted its highest quarterly profit since the end of 2008. Both of those record quarters came at a time when we were paying $4 a gallon for gas. If you really think there is a cause and effect relationship between the company having a good bottom line and us getting good gas prices, how much better do you think Exxon's bottom line is going to have to get before you're expecting prices to go down? Third, back in 2005, when oil was at $55 a barrel, oil company executives told Congress they didn't really need their subsidies anymore because prices were so high. Your colleague Ron Wyden played that clip during the hearing today. Now they're making double that amount of money on a barrel of oil. They're making double that, but now they're saying actually they do need those subsidies. How do you explain that math? Fourth, why do we need to incentivize oil companies at all to partake in the most profitable business the world has ever known? We have to subsidize their hauling costs? Really? That's what these subsidies are for. They can't afford to pay for trucking? Taxpayers should be subsidizing repairs at their wells? They can't afford that? If we decided tomorrow that all of the incentives were gone, would they decide that drilling was not profitable anymore? Would they quit? Would they stop doing it? And, you know, on that point, last year, these 5 oil companies alone made $1.5 trillion in revenue. ExxonMobil makes $83,000 in profit every single minute. How much do you think they really depend on that piddly few hundred million you give them in subsidies every year? It is a drop in their ocean, and that drop could actually make a big difference somewhere else in the budget. How much profit do they have to make for them to not need these subsidies anymore? Sixth, while we're talking, are your opinions on the oil companies' need for taxpayer subsidies, even when they're making all of this money, are your opinions on this? Are your opinions on this, Senator Hatch, at all affected by the fact that you've been given $255,000 by the oil and gas industry over the course of your career? Seventh, you are one of the main proponents of increased deepwater drilling off of U.S. shores. Last month, the U.S. Coast Guard singled out Transocean and their history of safety violations as one of the key causes of the worst oil spill in U.S. history. But Transocean is now contracted to drill almost half of the new wells since the BP disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. Are you cool with that? And eighth, speaking of offshore drilling and your concern about those blue-collar workers, are you concerned at all that an oil worker is 5 times more likely to be killed working on an oil rig in U.S. waters than working on an oil rig in foreign waters? Does that bother you, sir?
The liberal mouthpieces over at MSNBC certainly had the talking points yesterday afternoon and are already ready to make some political hay at the expense of our witnesses today. Now, I'm not going to wait for the MSNBC lineup to put on their hard hats and stand on an oil rig and do a promotional ad asking this tough question about the potential loss of blue-collar American jobs.
Senator Hatch, you do not have to wait. You can have that conversation with me in a hard hat or not, your choice. I'm happy to have that conversation with you. You think it makes great conservative politics to denounce liberal mouthpieces at MSNBC for wanting to talk about oil companies getting taxpayer subsidies. I can tell you, sir, that me and every other liberal in the country, mouthpiece or not, would be happy to talk about you wanting oil companies to get taxpayer subsidies every day from now until the next election and beyond. Corporate welfare for the most profitable companies the world has ever known while they're charging $4 a gallon for gas? You do not have to wait for me to want to talk about this, sir. You are welcome here anytime. Up next, a senator who will talk to me about this, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. We'll be right back.